Ahmad. Our next speaker is Ahmad Mahmoud, who is a PhD student at the Department of Islamic and Middle Eastern Studies at the Hebrew University. Ahmad is working on his PhD on his dissertation, which focuses on local transformations between late Ottoman rule and British colonial rule through the lens of public health in Haifa, Tiberias, and Nablus between 1902 and 1934. Liat and I are his advisors. Ahmad, please.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you Liat and Billie for organizing the unique conference, and also thank you for SEMA for all the administrative issues. Okay, so between the local and the central administration, Tiberias Flood 1934 as a case study. So let's begin with a report from Palestinian newspaper. On 15th of May 1934, Palestinian newspaper published the following report about Tiberias flood: 19 dead and 15 injured in hospitals. The last number was like 34 persons that killed by the flood. Around 12 noon, a heavy rainstorm occurred in Tiberias, and water flowed from the neighboring valleys in the low-lying parts of the city, with waves ranging in heights from 6 to 8 feet. Policemen came from outside Tiberias to provide first aid. There are several people missing. Furniture was swept away, and some homes were damaged. Those who became homeless were placed in Schweitzer Hospital and government school and shelters, like shelters near Meir Balhanis, around the hot springs. There is a lack of bread. The district government sent around like 500 sleeves of bread to Tiberias. The flood of 1934 was not the first flood that swept Tiberias, as could we see here from the protocols of the Municipal Council of Tiberias. The city experienced several floods in the 1920s, but their damage was limited to livestock or road infrastructure. The flood of 1934 was more violent, or the most violent in the history of the city, causing the death and injury of local inhabitants, Muslims, Jews, and Christians. The damage it caused to the city is considered the greatest since 1937 earthquake. The flood caused damage to the city in the long term, especially in terms of economics and health. It would take months for the city and years to recover from the returns to the pre-flood status. The flood raised questions about the city infrastructure ability to cope with natural disasters, the reputations of the residents, the role of the municipal council and the government in finding an exit strategy from the crisis, including compensations for the residents whose homes were demolished by the government. These questions were the focus of the discussion among several actors, which I will detail in a moment. The flood is an excellent case study for macrohistory due to the various actors or the interaction between them, which took part in the event process and formed a network of relationships based on power that coalesced in the city's exit from the crisis. These actors, including the municipality and its role as a local administrative institution that managed the daily life in the city and was the responsibility for the city and its residents, the Jewish community in Tiberias and its relations with the Yishuv institutions, and the Palestinian community and its relation with other Palestinian notables and philanthropic institutions, both Muslims and Christian. The role of the actors and the relations between them on the context of the Tiberias disaster show the experience with dealing with disasters in Mandate, Palestine was based on the 1927 earthquake. As Ahmad showed in his study, at the local level in his recent work on the relationship between Arab and Jewish residents, the dual Jewish community. On the imperial level, Sarah Irving has studied the British Mandate agenda and policies regarding Palestine infrastructure as based on British priorities, while Tawfiq Adler showed the earthquake as opportunity of destruction and construction in Lod. The flood of Tiberias also was opportunity for urban change and transformations and part of power relationship between the local and central administration. So Tiberias in the British Mandate period have several developments. Administrative, demographic, communal, and urban occurred in Tiberias, shaping the city and affecting its relief after the 1934 flood. During the Mandate period, Tiberias was a center for administrative, social, and economic services for the northern Jordan Valley and the eastern Galilee. It was also a key of communication and transit station as the road between the cities of Nazareth and Bisan ran through Tiberias, the historical trade routes linking southern Syria and northern Transjordan. The train station of the Haifa-Dir'a line, as well as the ancient Al-Majami' bridge, were located in Samah to the south, and to the north was the Banat Yaqub bridge linking northern Palestine to Damascus. During the British Mandate period, indicates that 50 to 60% of the inhabitants of Tiberias were Jewish. Until the beginning of the 20th century, the majority of the city population lived in the Old City, along with limited settlement outside it, to the west and north where Jewish and Christian missionaries lived. Tiberias also served as a tourist attraction due to its swimming and treatment resorts like the lake and hot springs, Hammamat Tabariya. Also, Tiberias aroused interest of British planners who worked in mandatory Palestine. The city became an important sign from the point of view of urban planning, which defined its urban development and was determined in the city plan. In the context of 1934 flood, the city plan was changed relative to what had excited previously, as the flood damage caused a replanning of the city that included the demolition of buildings and the transfer of its residents outside the old city. In the same context, the British experience in urban building in Palestine in the aftermath of the 1927 earthquake saw the earthquake damage as an opportunity for colonial planners to reshape the old city. This is an example of British policies that exploited disaster as opportunity to reshape the public landscape and to change the city life. Here we can see the area of the Al-Omari, which were in the old city of Tiberias. Okay, so here we can see a picture of the city before the flood of 1934. In Tiberias, one of the consequences of the flood was the decision of Governor of Galilee, Edward Keith Roche, to blow up city building in order to construct roads. The decision was made quickly and before obtaining the approval of the High Commissioner, who may have postponed the implementation of the decision. For Keith Roche, who aimed to prevent similar effects in the future disaster. This was a one-time opportunity that must be exploited. And that what happened. The decision had both short and long-term consequences. In the short term, the officials of the governor of the Galilee had to confront the residents who opposed opening the street where to be demolished homes were located. 97 houses were blown with about 4 hours. It's like bombed, in other words. And the angry residents were faced by the British police force, traditional case. In the long term, the decision to open the streets had economic consequences that institutions such as municipality of Tiberias did not expect. Here we will see the change later. For Keith Roche, who was following the matter closely, did not understand the objections at the time. He was proud of his achievement, as a promenade was made on the sea, as we can see here in this line. Was made on the Sea of Galilee shore from the rents of the demolished houses, and compensations was paid to the owners of the houses. Keith Roche's description seemed to be so simple and easy. However, he determined the fate of dozens of Tiberias' family. He also determined the course of relations between the government and the municipality through the long discussions of the economic consequences of the flood's effects, which would continue for months and years between the two sides, and what revealed the British government approach. The mandatory government, however, had its own priority. In a word, it was primarily concerned with securing its vital geo-strategic interest in Palestine and running its imperial operation there at a minimal or no cost to itself. Just to take a look here, what you can see in this picture, in this photo, it's like that. The blue color, we can see the roads that opened in the city after the flood. This is the transformation that did Keith Roche in that time. Through the discussion between the municipality and the government about the expenses of the flood, the Mandate government suggested that the flood cost would be counted as a loan to the municipality. The stage of providing relief to the city and its infrastructure constituted an arena of the power relations that emerged in the discussions and negotiations between the municipality and the British Mandate government over the cost and damage of the floods. In the National Archive in London, it's like more than 100 documents about these discussions, expenses, money. All things go back to money problem. We want to pay, we will not to pay, what we have to pay. However, the power relationship between the two sides was prominent. From the first day after the flood, just here to see the differences between two landscapes of the city. So, from the first days after the flood, and this was obvious not only in the discussion of the loan, the government initially refused the municipality's request to have a representative in the flood damage assessment committee. Later, the government agreed at the beginning of the discussions about a municipal loan. The proposal was rejected by the municipality because of the bad economic conditions, and then agreed on condition of low interest rates. Low interest loans was one of the methods used by the British administration in the aftermath of the 1927 earthquake in Palestine, where the owners of the building and the houses or small businesses, as shows Sarah Irving, were given loans with low interest, an important aspect that concerned the municipality since the government had demolished houses in Tiberias without consolidating it. Was who would pay the compensation for the demolished houses to their owners. The British administration indicated that paying costs such as feeding the refugees and rehabilitating the population would be taken upon itself, but the expenses of road construction were paid by the government, but funded by the municipality. As for the High Commissioner, he suggested that the municipality pay all costs through a purpose-given loan. The most important aspect was compensating the owners of the buildings that were demolished. The alternative to the municipal representative proposal was that if the building were demolished because of the flood, undoubtedly it would be right for the owners to receive a loan to rebuild, as happened in the aftermath of the 1927 earthquake. But it seemed that the building destroyed by the flood were few, and the majority were demolished in order to build new roads, designed to prevent floods in the future. This was based on one of the provisions of the 1932 British Honduras Hurricane Loan regarding government compensation for properties that were demolished for the public health service. As the municipal records show, that the municipality indicated that it would not be able to pay the loan immediately. And here we can see the grids in the city after winning the roads. Due to the economic crisis it was undergoing and because of the poverty of the population, after a long discussion with the government, it was decided that although the municipality finances were challenged, it agreed in principle to pay the expenses of the road construction with a specific condition attached, such as the government paying compensation for the houses that it demolished, without consolidating the municipality, determining the expenses of the road construction, for the government to undertake the paving of some roads and the construction of a wall on the lake shore to prevent people from falling in, cleaning up the places that were demolished, and also cleaning up the streets after constructing them from dirt and stones before the winter season. After the government accepted the municipality conditions, an agreement on the loan was made with the government taking into account the bad conditions of the municipality and the town. The municipality would begin to repay the loan 5 years from the date of the agreement. The municipality was granted the loan under these conditions, and it began to pay the loan back in the 1940. And by the way, the municipality continued to pay this loan after establishing the State of Israel. So interesting. By imposing the loan on the municipality, the British administration was able to apply its vision of the expenses of the flood, which was based on the ideas that minimum cost must be spent on Tiberius. As part of Britain's vision, there were the areas under its rule. Also, the municipality seemed to be on the weaker side and had no option but to accept the loan. It followed up on the government's work to reform infrastructure. In November 1934, the government agreed to inform the municipality of its decision in repair work and accepted the presence of the municipal engineer alongside the engineer of the Public Works Department to review the works and their expenses. Through the correspondence between the municipality and the Northern District Office, North Palestine, the municipality complains about the unprofessional way street repair was implemented, or the failure to repair the city streets in a manner acceptable to the municipality, which harmed the city development and its image. This was evident in the proposal of the municipality member, Rabbi Abraham Weinberg, that the municipality should not be responsible for paying the expenses of roadworks that had to be repeated due to the errors. Also, something that showed the municipality's strength and unity in the face of the government. The British government dealt with the flood's damage according to its own priorities and not according to those of the residents. From the first stage of the demolishing the homes of the city residents, the priority was to change the shape of the old city at a time when the residents had lost their homes or shelters. In a sense, changing the shape of the city was more important than housing the population. British reports focusing on their priorities and justify them by noting the danger of the building, failing to prevent a recurrence of the flood, moving the ruins of the houses near the lake shore, which had become a place for picnics, and constructing new roads that provide amenities in the city. An order was issued to prevent construction inside the old city and to build around 100 homes outside the old city, similarly to the development of Nablus outside of the old city after May of 1927 earthquake. These changes, which the British administration was able to carry out, represented a golden opportunity that was not previously available to it, and through which it was able to change the shape of the city without regarding for the needs of the population and their relationship with their city. Part of that relationship revolved around the public health conditions posed by the flood and the infrastructure works that affected the daily lives of the residents. So, to conclude, the flood of 1934 was a disaster that imposed many changes on the Tiberias, whether in the part of the rulers or the local population of the mixed city. The stage of the repairing the damage caused by the flood was an opportunity for the governor of Northern District to destroy and rebuild parts of the city and to stop construction inside the old city, while at the same time spending the minimum cost in the reconstruction of the city from the government budget. In this context, the picture did not differ much from the government experience with the 1927 earthquake in some urban centers in Palestine, as shown in the case of Lod, for example, or Nablus. Rather, that become a point of references in dealing with disaster in Palestine, meaning that the colonial experience in Palestine gave the Mandate authorities sufficient experience in managing the effects of disasters according to their priorities. Regardless of what had occurred and the impact on the local population from the economic point of view, the assistant district government indicated that if the residents did not accept compensation for the demolition of their homes, they could go to court. From the health point of view, the effects of digging water drainage channels were negative for the general health of the population, as some used them instead to defecate or urinate. Perhaps this is a spontaneous expression of the residents' dissatisfaction with the management of the effects of the flood on their city. And here, for ending, just to see picture and differences of the city between the 40s and after 1948. Thank you.